Claire Wilson is gearing up for her first day as an English teacher at Westerbrook High School. Upon arriving at the school, she strikes up a conversation with Catherine, a French teacher, and they exchange a few words about Claire's recent move. During a faculty meeting, the school principal introduces Claire to the staff. That night, Claire's husband, Matt, expresses frustration about the timing of his upcoming work trip, noting that it coincides with her ovulation, meaning they'll miss their chance to try for a baby this month. The following day, Claire begins her senior English class. Students Eric and Josh are instantly captivated by her appearance. As she reads a poem to the class, Eric watches her with admiration. After class, Eric meets with his advisor, Mr. Castillo, to ask about the Travis County Community Scholarship. Mr. Castillo explains that Eric meets most of the qualifications, including working a job at a local diner and serving as the soccer team captain. However, to fully qualify, Eric will need to score at least 1250 on his sets. At soccer practice, Eric, Josh, and their teammate Logan spot Claire getting into her car. Logan asks who the stunning woman is, and Eric, smiling, explains that she's their new English teacher. While having dinner alone, Claire receives a text from Matt informing her that his flight has been canceled, so he won't be making it home that night. He suggests she go out and have some fun to celebrate her new job. Meanwhile, Eric finishes his shift at the diner and sneaks off to the back with a friend to smoke a joint. Afterward, his friends pressure him into making milkshakes for everyone. As they hang out, Logan notices Claire sitting alone in the diner and decides to introduce himself. Despite being reluctant because they're high, Eric and Josh join him at her table. The boys sit with Claire, but Logan barely starts flirting before he receives a text from his mom asking him to come home. He asks Josh to drive him, leaving Claire and Eric alone. Eric vents about his friends assuming the diner's food is free just because he works there. Claire empathizes and offers to pay for their milkshakes, sharing that she once worked at a diner and understands the struggle. The conversation shifts to Eric's future plans, where he talks about wanting to earn a scholarship to the University of Texas, but admits he's struggling to achieve the necessary state score. Eric suddenly suggests that Claire could tutor him for the SATs, and she responds that she'd be happy to help if the school approves it. Later, Claire offers to give Eric a ride home. During the drive, she mentions that her brother, a cop, lives nearby. She also plays some Frank Ocean in the car, surprising Eric, who didn't expect a teacher to enjoy the same music he loves. That night, Claire notices that Eric has sent her a follow request on Instagram, but she chooses not to accept it. Later, as she falls asleep, she dreams about being intimate with Eric. Over the weekend, Claire gets dressed to go out, and when Matt asks where she's heading, she lies, saying she's meeting Catherine for drinks. In reality, she heads to the diner to tutor Eric. A month later, Eric attends a party where he ends up kissing his ex-girlfriend, Allison. The police soon arrive to bust the party for underage drinking and other illegal activities. Eric gets caught, and an officer named Nate Wilson asks him to take a breathalyzer test. Nervous that a police citation could ruin his college and scholarship applications, Eric notices Nate's last name and asks if he has a sister who teaches at Westerbrook. When Nate confirms that Claire is his sister, Eric pleads with him to call her instead of his mom, explaining that Claire has been tutoring him for the past month. Nate contacts Claire, and she manages to convince him to give Eric a warning this time. Claire arrives to pick Eric up and scolds him for making such reckless choices. During the drive home, Eric calls her Miss Wilson, but she tells him to drop the formality and just call her Claire. The following day, Eric gets ready for his tutoring session, but to his surprise, Claire shows up at his house and says she has a different plan for the day. Instead of say he prep, she wants to take him somewhere. As they drive, Eric jokingly asks if he's being kidnapped. Claire then reveals that she's taking him on a tour of the University of Texas, where she went to college. As they tour the campus, Claire asks Eric about his future plans. Eric shares that he wants to become a doctor because he feels driven to help others. They run into Logan's older brother, Cody, who is a student there, and he invites them to a party at his fraternity house. At the party, Claire opens up about how she missed out on social activities like this during college because she was busy taking care of her alcoholic father. Eric then shares that he never knew his own father, who left before he was born. They bond over their difficult family experiences. At one point, Eric gently brushes something out of Claire's hair, and there's a moment of unspoken tension between them as they make eye contact. Claire breaks the silence, suggesting it's time to leave. When Claire gets home, she receives a text from Eric saying he had a great time. She quickly deletes the message. Eric waits for her response but doesn't get one and notices she hasn't accepted his follow request on Instagram either. Later that night, while Matt is asleep, Claire decides to accept Eric's follow request on Instagram. The next day, Eric notices this and grins, catching the attention of Logan, who becomes curious about the sudden smile. Later, Eric is by his locker when he spots Claire standing outside her classroom. He approaches Claire and asks if they can have a word. Claire takes Eric into the classroom. After a bit of small talk, Eric steps closer and kisses her. Startled, Claire pulls away and tells him to leave. Eric stammers an apology and exits the room, clearly embarrassed, while Claire stays behind, touching her lip, trying to process what just happened. That night, Eric dreams of Claire looking more attractive than ever and fantasizes about her pleasuring him in front of the entire class. After English class, Eric stays behind to apologize to Claire once more. She firmly tells him that his behavior was inappropriate and warns him that if anyone found out, it could ruin her life. Eric assures her he won't say a word and then asks if she will continue tutoring him. Claire refuses at first, but Eric pleads, explaining that he can't afford the expensive SAT prep courses that give his peers an edge. Claire eventually agrees to keep tutoring him, but only if he promises never to act like that again. Eric agrees without hesitation. Later, Claire and her colleague Catherine help the students decorate the gym for the upcoming homecoming dance. While working, Claire notices Eric asking Allison to be his date, which visibly unsettles her. Cody visits Logan at his house and asks about the mystery woman he saw Eric with at the university. Logan is surprised that Eric has been seeing someone and hasn't mentioned it to his friends. Eric lies, saying the girl's name is Stephanie and that she's a college student. When Logan insists on meeting her, Eric brushes it off, saying they'll meet her eventually. Just then, Eric receives several messages from Claire asking where he is. He ignores the texts. At the same time, Claire waits at the diner, wondering why Eric hasn't shown up for their tutoring session. At the homecoming dance, Claire and Catherine complain about how tedious it is to chaperone the event. Catherine hands Claire some alcohol to help make the night more bearable. Later, Claire becomes envious when she sees Allison dancing closely with Eric. She pulls Eric aside and confronts him about skipping their tutoring session. Eric initially apologizes, but then confesses that he's been avoiding her because he's too attracted to her. He admits he's worried that spending time with her will lead him to do something reckless that could get her into serious trouble. Claire tells him to go back to the dance, but later their eyes meet across the room. She gives him a meaningful look before heading toward the exit. Understanding her signal, Eric quietly follows. Eric slips into her car and she drives them to a secluded area. As they sit together in tense silence, Claire reassures him that they don't have to go through with it if he's unsure. Eric responds that he wants to, obviously. She instructs him to move to the back seat, which he does without hesitation. Claire follows him and begins taking off his jacket.